All right. Hey there, all you Cinepickers. This is Michaela and Kevin coming at you with yet another Cinepick of the week. So, Kevin, this week it was your decision
Yes.
to pick a movie for me to watch. What did you pick for me and why?
So my cinepick for you, Michaela, this week was the 1977 Japanese horror fantasy comedy House, or I think it's Houseu or whatever,
Tosu.
But yeah, House. So this movie, so the when I came up with the idea for Cinepix in general, I had a few movies in mind when I was thinking about this whole channel, this whole video, this show, podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, One was Tears of the Black Tiger, which we did a couple weeks ago, and House. I was thinking of those two movies because they're just so bizarre, and they're movies that I wish I watched more with other people that I just haven't, and I wanted to share it, and so House is one of those movies that I just feel like needs to be shared. So there you go. So that's
Yes.
why I said House. So, uh, Michaela, what do you think about
Kevin.
House? So House, how would you describe House? That's the challenge of today. Describe it. What is this madness?
That's a very good question. Well, the good thing is that I think I can more easily explain the plot of this movie
Hmm.
than I could Tears of the Black Tiger. Did I
Yeah,
get it right?
yeah, you got it.
Did I say it right? Yes!
Yeah.
Okay, it's been enough time.
Okay.
I must have purged the incorrect symbols from my
Right, you,
mind.
you finally got it out of your system.
Yeah, it also might have just been because you just said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is about a group. Okay. At its core,
Hmm.
it's about a group of like five or six teenage girls that decide to go on like a summer vacation to one of the girls' aunt's fancy homes that's out in the countryside. And there they learn that there's some nefarious things going on with the aunt, and it kind of turns into like this weird this haunted house sort of scenario where objects in the house like come to life and kind of try to kill them um, at various rates of success. That are the weirdness of like the home is like manifest hallucinations, and it reminds me a lot of The Evil Dead in the way that it just has so many like popping colors
Yeah.
and weird objects like coming to life spontaneously in cartoon. It reminds me a lot. Oh wait, I'm not finished summarizing it.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is that it turns out that the ant is not actually real. The ant has actually been dead, but I guess she wanted to be married so much that her spirit stuck around and has been feeding off of the souls of the young people that come past the house. So, like, how convenient would it be that all of a sudden this group of five, six young ladies happen to come and stay? Like, field day. It's a
Yeah.
buffet for the aunt, obviously. And then there's like these weird subplots with like one of the girls has a crush on this older guy. I think he's like a teacher at the school or
Yeah.
something. I didn't really get it. Like, I think originally they were all supposed to go on their own separate summer vacations, and she was going to be on one where he was going to be there, and she was excited about it.
Hmm.
But I guess it got canceled, and so she instead invited him to also come stay at the aunt's house with all these
Right.
teenage girls. It's very strange. So like occasionally, like the film will just cut to his subplot of him trying like desperately to make his way to the countryside to this house.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think he ever makes it.
No, he doesn't.
He
Do
never
you
does.
remember what happens to him?
I think he gets something happen. It's with the guy on the corner that's selling watermelons or
Yeah,
something. Something happens with that guy.
yeah. So yeah,
There's also a weird
it's
guy in the
it,
corner that sells
right.
watermelons.
It's a quick thing. He gets turned into a pile of bananas. I don't know if you noticed that. It's very it's kind of it's almost Easter eggy, but it's when the gorgeous's stepmother comes to the house. She stops by the watermelon stand, and you see the dune buggy is there. The teacher's dune buggy is still at the watermelon stand, and in the driver's seat of the dune buggy is a pile of bananas wearing a hat, the same hat that the teacher was wearing. So he gets turned
Oh,
into a pile of bananas
oh my God.
randomly. I like
This
no
is
idea why.
cute.
That yeah. So they
Because fruits have some kind of weird significance in this universe.
and,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh, there's also another subplot. The main girl in this film, the main girl out of the friend group,
Hmm.
her name is Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay, can I just say they all have names that like describe their personalities.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
guess this girl's personality is that she's just really pretty. And
Hmm.
honestly, I think she's a little vain because she can't stop staring at herself in mirrors the
Right.
whole movie.
Yeah.
But Gorgeous has like a weird fascination with her deceased mother.
Hmm.
Maybe it's not weird, it's just she misses the mom, obviously,
Yeah.
and like her father, 8 years after the mother has passed, decides to move on with another woman and I guess get remarried. I
Yeah.
think they're like engaged or
That's yeah.
something.
It seems like so they're engaged. It seems like a similar situation to Over the Moon, where like the dad
Yeah.
pops up with this strange woman and is like, "We're gonna get married." It's like what?
It's like,
Like
this woman's gonna be your new mommy.
yeah.
And Gorgeous obviously doesn't like that.
Hmm.
So she
Yeah.
like goes and she's like, "Oh, mom, I miss you." Like, "Oh, I don't want to go on vacation," because that's originally where she was gonna go on vacation.
Yeah.
She was gonna go with her
With her
dad.
father. Yeah, but instead she's like, I will invite everybody to my aunt's house and then ask my aunt if we can come to her house. That's basically in that order. That's
Yeah, yeah, she doesn't like. So basically, she asks. She go. The aunt thinks it's just gonna be her, and then she shows up with like five other people.
yeah. Well,
And this aunt is like in a wheelchair. The house
mhm.
is obviously in a state of disrepair. And she's just like, who are all these people? What the heck? But she welcomes it,
Yeah.
and it's cool.
Right. You
And
find
so Gorgeous
yeah.
has this subplot.
Right.
There's this subplot there
Mhm.
with her and her mom.
Yeah, and like that's the that subplot is that's the thing. It's kind of the driving force that leads the story in the direction of the ant. You know, without that, like, how do they get to the ant's house? You know, so that's the vehicle they take to get to the ant's house is that little subplot. Her little thing with her mother. You know, her whole backstory there. But so the girls all have, you know, kind of weird names, and they say at one point they say they're kind of nicknames, but you never know what their real names are, so it's just that's what their names are. So do you remember their names?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Because I looked it up in the wiki afterward because I was
Yeah.
so interested. Um, with like, where did these actors come from?
Yeah.
Because it's weird because they're all really good, actually.
Mhm.
At least they're all really good at portraying teenagers. Like I felt like the teenagers were like the excitable way that like girls just are when they're around each other, and the
Yeah.
way that they communicate when they're all really excited. Like they really nailed it, and I think like I looked it up afterward. I looked up the Wikipedia page because I
Yeah.
wanted to know, and I found that they were all amateur actors before this movie, except
Mhm.
I think for like the two lead girls and then some of the adults. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm kind of impressed because like I was rooting for some of them, as corny as the acting itself was. But they have names like Fantasy
Mhm.
because she daydreams, Gorgeous because she's pretty, Kung Fu because she's just like aggressive or something. she just chops stuff. I
Yeah.
It's sad because I actually know people like this, but they're all cool, so
Yeah.
it's okay. There's a girl, oh my god, Mac.
Yeah.
I don't know why she's called Mac. I don't know if it's an acronym for like mac and cheese
Yeah,
or
I'm
if
not sure. They call her Mac, and they say they call her Mac because she eats so much. But like still like
right.
so why is it Mac? You're so I don't know.
Why is it Mac? I don't
Yeah.
really know.
It,
Either
it, it
way,
might
I
be a
wrote it
Japanese,
down in my
yeah.
notes.
It might be like a Japanese thing. I don't know if they
Yeah, I
have.
wrote it down in my notes though that I said she's either gonna die first or she's gonna die last.
Yeah.
And my first prediction was correct
Yep.
because I was like, "There's no way she's gonna survive this." Sadly, because I really liked her,
Mhm.
like her just being hungry,
Yeah.
it's like the entire foundation of her character.
Right.
Like that's just, it's like her thing. Like each character has a thing, right?
Right.
So then you've got Melody,
Mhm.
who's musically inclined. She plays piano or something.
Mhm.
And then there's Sweet. I don't get what her deal. I don't really know what her deal
Yeah,
is.
I'm not sure it's sweet. What what her thing is
That
either.
she's just nice.
Yeah,
I think it's just that she's nice.
I guess. Yeah.
Is that it?
I'm
Are
not
there
sure.
more?
There's Prof. They call her Prof. I think it's short for professor. And because she's always like she's got the glasses. She's like the Velma of the group. You know.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
See, this whole
yeah,
movie is like a Japanese fever dream
yeah.
come to life, but it reminded me most of Sailor Moon.
Mhm.
Um, and Kevin, I actually, for the viewers that are listening in, I sent Kevin messages while I was watching this,
Yeah.
and I told him, I'm like, if you like this movie, I think you might like Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon, like the characters in this movie, remind me so much of the characters in Sailor Moon. Like by the fact that they all have their own individual, distinct personalities, even if they say stuff that's like corny as hell,
Mhm.
they're all very distinct but work well together despite all of their differences. And
Mhm.
something about this like really endearing when they're like young, you know,
Yeah.
and
And,
excitable, and it's kind of wholesome and cute.
hmm
Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it's not like this isn't like it's not really clicky, because that's what I was saying. When you think of like high school or whatever, there's like the cliques and like you fit with the people who are like you, but like all of these girls are completely different from each other. Yet you can see like their friendship is still really strong. They want to stick together all the time, and so it's yeah. So it's like I don't know. It's a nice change to have that kind of perspective where
right?
like you have this huge. It's not like a small like two or three people. There's like six girls in this group and they all stick together, even though they're all completely different. It's
Right?
yeah.
It reminds me of like I feel like I can't say it's only happened once in my life, but it's only happened once in my life with this many people. Um, but I mean, we don't have to include this in the video. I'm just
Hmm.
sharing it. When I was in eighth grade, I transferred schools um, from public school to charter school, and I thought I was going to be the only new kid. Only that school year, a whole bunch of kids transferred from other middle schools, so I actually wasn't alone. And they, most of them happened to all be females, and for some weird reason, we all ended up banding together out of the collective shyness and like weird dorkiness that we were.
Yeah.
Um, and we all had different interests, like I had one friend that was really into The Nightmare Before Christmas, and another friend that liked Dungeons and Dragons and like raised chickens in her backyard. She was so cool. And like then there was me. I was like the figure skater at the time. That
Hmm.
and then there was another girl who was like super super into like Panic at the Disco, and then another girl that really liked Neopets. Like it was just like random, seemingly random people brought in from like the public school system because we all freaking hated it.
Hmm.
But we all ended up banding together, and it was like not like we were the most like the nicest clique
Mhm.
because we'd always hang out together in our own little corner during the lunch period. But we were totally cool if other people came to hang out with us too.
Yeah.
And then, like our influence just kept like it kept growing. We were like the anti clique. Like we were bound by dorkiness, uh, not by fear.
Right.
So, like, it's so rare when it happens, but when it happens, it's such a magical, like, joyful time.
Mhm.
I don't know. And so, like, watching it unfold in front of me on the screen, it just, like, it took me back.
Yeah.
It like took me back to the days of, like, eighth grade before we all had fully developed
Mhm.
ideas and identities back when everyone could like just get along. It was just like it was so wholesome. The
Yeah.
whole like the first half an hour, I was just like sitting there, like not really much happened really in the first half an hour to be honest,
Mhm.
but I was just enjoying watching this very wholesome this very wholesome scene of these teenage Japanese schoolgirls just like enjoying their time together. Like there's even a montage where they're on the bus
Mhm.
and the main girl, Gorgeous, I can't believe they have these nicknames. Oh my god. Gorgeous is like telling the story of her aunt and how her aunt
Yeah.
had a fiance who went off to war and never came back and like
Mhm.
all the girls are like commenting
Yeah. And
as she's telling the story.
I love that scene. That's I think it might be one of my favorite. I think I don't know if it's my favorite scene in the movie, but when it comes to flashback, uh, exposition scenes, it's probably the best scene in movie history. I think that I've ever seen. Like because the way they do it, it's like watching a silent film, and instead of her like just explaining it, it's as if all the girls are also watching the film and they're commenting on the film itself, and they're like, she talks about her mother and her aunt and the place they grew up, and the girls can see like the mother and like, oh, she looks just like you, Gorgeous. And then
It's so bizarre
it,
at the same
it's
time though
it's bizarre,
because
but
it's
so
like she's
interesting.
talking it's like she's talking a movie montage into existence. It's like
Yeah,
they are watching it
yeah, but
as it's so weird.
it's weird and bizarre, but like I love it. It makes it interesting. It's was so I forget who the filmmakers are. They did like the movie Top Secret, and I think they did the Naked Gun series and Airplane. I think they did Airplane. Anyways, but they usually do like those parody movies, like the original parody movies back when parody movies were cool and like good. And I don't know if you've seen any of those movies, but
Like mid 2000s,
not
like
those movies.
2005,
Those are
2005.
the parody movies that ruined parody movies. I'm talking about like Airplane, like 80s and early 90s. Those parody movies. I don't know if you've seen
No,
those.
then I have not.
So yeah, well, so I gotta add some of those to my Cinepick list then, because especially Top Secret, that one is ridiculous. But anyways, but their philosophy was because they're just like everything needs to be funny. There needs to be something funny on screen at all times. And but the thing is, when you're telling a movie, you need to have some sort of exposition. Somebody needs to explain something, give the audience some information, and that's not funny. So what you do is you have that scene where somebody's giving information to another character and also the audience, so the audience knows what's going on. And in the background, there will be something funny going on. So maybe it'll be like a restaurant scene, and these two characters are talking, and then in the background, there's a waiter who's like serving food in his underwear. Like just something completely ridiculous. Just happening in the background while these two characters are talking and like spilling exposition. And so that's like their whole thing. And so this kind of reminds me of that, where like not necessarily it's funny, but it's an interesting way to give exposition. So it's not boring, but like you get all the information, but you also have like this weird commentary from all the other girls talking about it, and like you see, especially like the one of the more ridiculous comments that the girls made was they talk about the nuclear bomb. I think it was Hiroshima is the. But anyway, so it's the nuclear bomb. They see the video of the nuclear bomb going off,
Yeah.
and one of the girls is like, "It looks like cotton candy,"
And then they all laugh.
and they all laugh, But it's like,
They're like, oh, that feels so yummy, cotton candy.
wow, yeah. But it's like it's a nuclear bomb. So
It's like it's all so wholesome and wrong at the same
right,
time.
it's yeah. But I love that I love that scene. It's but there's stuff like that. This movie because you said like the first 30 minutes not a lot happens, but it's still really it's interesting to watch, and also the way they film stuff and this director I haven't seen anything else from him, and like after watching it this last time I was like I want to find out who is this guy who made this thing, and I watched some Q&As with him. Like I watched Stanford. The Japanese Society of Stanford invited him over for a Q&A, and I watched that Q&A, and he seems like just the most fun guy ever. Like this director, because he's an old guy now, and actually I don't think he's alive anymore. I think he recently passed away. But watching the Q&A, like he's also like super like philosophical, but it's also like has nothing like it's a lot of like empty information, that kind of like stuff that like it's stuff that obviously is like really meaningful to him and has helped him like guide him through his film career, but really has nothing like I can't apply any of it to my life. It means nothing to me. It's that kind of. And so like watching these Q&As, like people asking him questions and he answers it in some like weird philosophical but like super lighthearted way. He's not like a serious philosopher. He's like and he's always got like funny quick jokes or whatever, but like philosophical jokes that he's always telling. But anyway, doing a little bit of research on this movie, the production, the thing that surprised me the most watching it the last time was is seeing the Toho logo. And I don't know how much you know about Toho. That was, at least in the 70s, was one of the biggest film studios in Japan. It's like MGM during the golden age of musicals. Like that was Toho back in the 1970s. Like the big boys. These are big budget. This is the big budget studio, super serious. And so
like Disney.
Yeah, like Disney.
Out.
Right? So Toho is the one who they did all of the Godzilla movies and stuff, but they're pretty serious in Japan. And so it surprised me that Toho would produce a movie like this. The director, Obayashi, I believe that's his name, he co-wrote this movie with his 11-year-old daughter. What it was is Toho at the time, this was after Jaws came out, and Toho wanted to create their own kind of Jaws movie. And Obayashi suggested, how's about a movie, like a haunted house movie where the house eats people, And so this is supposed to be Toho's version of Jaws, which this kind of skewed pretty far away from Jaws. But Obayashi decided he was going to co-write this movie with his 11-year-old daughter because he wanted to get some of like the childhood fears, like kind of the innocence of childhood, but also like the irrational fears of childhood as well, and like capture that in this film. And so, and his daughter, she had some weird irrational fears, as I'm sure we all do when we're 11 years old, and like one of them is futon mattresses falling on top of her. She's terrified that a futon mattress will fall on top of her. That's just like a thing, And so, I
used to have that fear as a kid too.
Yeah.
Because those mattresses, like you're so small and they're so big.
Right.
You're always afraid they're gonna fall. When they're leaning up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, and this movie there's a scene of futon mattresses attacking this girl. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I didn't understand. That's the one death that
it
I did
was
not.
yeah, it's strange, but that was a direct
Yeah.
that was directly from his daughter, and also his daughter is afraid of her fingers getting stuck between the piano keys. That's a fear. I don't know how small her fingers are that they would get stuck between the piano keys, but that was a thing. And so he incorporated that by having a piano eat an entire girl, which is
I mean,
one
I've
of the
definitely
most.
had my
I
finger
think
slammed in the piano cover before. It hurts
yeah.
so bad. It's so
Right.
terrifying. So yeah, but I like that they took that fear
Hmm.
and they just cranked it up
Yeah,
past 10.
and
They
I
cranked it up times
yeah, and
15.
also like the visuals of this movie. I love the they use yeah just like every trick, and the thing is, so when I was watching this movie, I was like, this has to have been like with all of the sort of special effects that they're using and everything, like this has to have been like carefully storyboarded out. There's no other way you could possibly make a movie like this with this sort of effects without storyboarding it at all. And but after doing some research about this director, he never storyboards anything, which is really weird. Especially some of the transition scenes. There was one really bizarre transition scene that I thought worked so well, but it was just so strange. It's super jarring, and that's when I forget exactly what's happening, but you see like the bunch of girls and they're kind of I guess they just got over something traumatic and they're all kind of like sitting together and it's kind of quiet. And then all of a sudden, this random guy, like his face jumps into the frame with noodles hanging out of his mouth and he's just screaming. And then it transitions to this noodle restaurant where everybody's like laughing and having a good time and eating noodles.
Yeah.
Right? It's a super jarring transition. And it's like, like startled. It's like a jump scare almost. And, but it's like, but like, you have to like to have that sort of like vision in your head without like storyboarding it first and like having the foresight to be able to film that you know beforehand is like it's ridiculous.
Right. Like I immediately thought that like from the very beginning of the film actually before it continued on with it,
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh, this must be this has to be some kind of a low budget film because all of the effects were like very copy and paste.
Hmm.
It's like the director saw all of the different options in
Yeah.
like Google Slides that you can use to animate objects in your PowerPoint, and he
Hmm.
was like, let's just use all of them.
Right.
So we'll just have random, like really random fade ins, fade outs,
Hmm.
the transition, like the little star, the
Yeah.
like that's in there a whole bunch of
Hmm.
times. He puts transit. There's another one where he actively tells you what to look at.
Yeah.
So like instead of observing characters in the background having emotions, the the screen will just zoom in
Hmm.
on like the main girl having her little moment in the background, so that she's having her moment. But like stuff like that will just happen, and from the beginning of the film I was like, okay, like it's like happening in a cheap corny kind of 80s way, like okay, this has got to be but it continued.
Hmm.
But that kind of thing, the method of where it seemed like B-roll, low budget, he just put these in randomly to just do something, like it kept continuing and it kept getting more and more layered, where I was like, there's no way that this was randomly just thrown in there. They
Yeah.
had to have like because you think it's like there is no way that like a series of transitions like this in this particular order were just thrown in here randomly, because that's like an illogical way of making a film.
Yeah.
So then it had me thinking, I'm like, okay, so there has to be something brilliant. Like you have to give it to the writers and to the directors then
Hmm.
for like crafting, because it's just, like it's an assault on your eyes
Yeah.
almost. Like it's an assault to your senses. like the amount of effects and
Mm-hmm.
at like stuff happening at the same time. So you have to give it credit. You have to give it credit because there's no way that they could have done that without planning it meticulously. But now I'm confused because you're telling me the director didn't storyboard
Right?
it.
Yeah. That's the
So
thing. It's
like,
surprising. Well, and
what?
everything, because it seems at first, because especially the first part of the movie, there's a lot of weird transition and wipes, and like, it seems like this, he's just experimenting. You know, it's like his first time editing a movie, and then he's got like, oh, I have all these things I could put in, and just like boom, boom, boom. But then as you continue watching, you see like it's all very intentional. At the same time, like it all works together. It's not as random as it seemed, and it's like this guy,
Right?
like he had to have planned it out. If he's not storyboarding, he has to like be making lots and lots of notes somewhere in order to like
Like
plan this
down to
out.
the green screen effects, where all of a sudden it's like the characters never really die. They're like dismembered, and then their limbs just start floating all over the place,
Yeah,
and like popping up in random places.
right.
Or like this. Oh my god, that green screen though!
Mm-hmm.
I died. The
Yeah.
green screen backgrounds. You can tell that it was like made on a soundstage because you have
Mm-hmm.
all these green screen effects, and they're really bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. The effects.
So
Some of the
bad.
effects were really good, like the like Mac, her floating head effects. I felt like was really good. Uh, you know, there's one part where it's like definitely a head on a string, you know, floating around. But then there's other parts where you can see like this is actually the actor's face, you know. But it's like, how did you get that head to be floating? You know, to be floating so
Right?
well, you know, like that worked really well. And
Right? Because
I'm
it
not
looks
sure
so
if that was
obviously
green
fake.
screen or what, but that worked out
It
really
looks
well.
so obviously fake, but then the face is still there.
Yeah.
So it's like, huh?
Hmm. So yeah, so
Huh?
like yeah, so that effect is really good. And then you've got other scenes like the piano scene, you know, where it's like some of it is good, so like but some of it is really bad, and the but so yeah, that's but he uses a lot of old school techniques. A lot there's a lot of stop motion type of effects going on, and those work like I feel like well, and it's yeah, it's really interesting. So that's another thing about this director. From reading about him and also watching the Q&A, he has an interesting view on film and the way he started viewing film. He says he tells a story when he was 3 years old, and he found a film projector in his house and decided to, or and he thought that it was a toy, so he's playing with it. And when he turns it on, he sees a still image, and it's like a hand cranked film projector. And so he starts cranking it, and as he's cranking it, the next slide is going in. And then he sees that the image, it's the same image, but it's a little bit different. And he cranks it again, and another image, but it's slightly different, and another, you know. And that you realize, like, yeah, and that kind of, uh, that had a huge influence on the way that he viewed film. Whereas I feel like a lot of other directors, they view film as a medium to tell a story, and that's how you know, and so you can use it to capture different things and capture emotions and capture the you know, but it's basically just to tell a story. Whereas he feels like film is just a series of still images layered on top of each other and played in rapid succession to create the illusion of movement. And that's how he views film. He doesn't view it as a way to tell stories. He's kind of like a way to create movement in life, and he goes from there. That's where he starts, and then he can tell a story after that. But and by telling a story, he wants to like capture more emotion and more of like the people like more of people doing things rather than the actual story itself, and then the story will come later. But that's and you see a lot of kind of a lot of that. How does he or because a lot of this stuff is really experimental, and there's a lot of weird experiment, especially like the first the first scene. you open up and you see like this small little screen, and it's like black and white, and it's like a little photo shoot that these two girls are having, where one girl is dressing up as like a ghost or a witch or something, and the other girl is taking pictures. And as they go, the this little screen, the black around it kind of fades out, and you see an image, and it's like a still image of something. It's kind of the same room that they're in, but it's not. But it's a still image where you still have this small frame in the middle of the moving pictures, and the girl's walking, and then she does like a little jump, and in the middle of the jump, all of a sudden, that little frame matches up with the still image around it, and that little jump, and now you've got the big screen, and everything is moving, and it's really weird. Like, obviously, like a very experimental thing to do. Has nothing to do with telling the story. It doesn't advance the story at all, but it's just really interesting to watch, and he does a lot of stuff like that where it's just really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's like this film is it's like hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that like there is something actively happening in like every single shot,
Mm-hmm.
in like throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like there are multiple things happening at the same time. Like it is layered, whether intentionally or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's just always stuff going on, and it's just, this movie is like an experience. I think this is one of those movies that's like you have to go in expecting, and like with the expectation that some things will just like not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to kind of rectify that in your own brain before you go in, and then you go in and you have tons of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the first, I definitely was not knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Like, at all from this film.
Right.
But once I passed that, you know what it was? And I filmed it actually for my own reference. The moment that I stopped taking notes on the film and just said, screw it, I'm just gonna watch it, because this is like, it's an FX explosion going on in front of my eyes here, and I couldn't like look away almost, like there was nothing, like it was too distracting. I had to keep watching it. The moment that I stopped was the scene, I believe, Gorgeous goes upstairs and starts playing with all of her mother's vanity stuff, and the girls are downstairs like cooking, and the aunt gets up out of her wheelchair and walks into the freezer and disappears.
Yeah.
She disappears, and the girls are like, what? Did you just see that? What just happened? What just happened? And then she peeks out of the side of the frame and looks at us like right in the face and winks.
Yeah.
And then scuttles away. Fourth wall breaks, looks at, and it kicks off the strangest sequence, like the Tears of the Black, the tiger.
Yeah.
The tiger. I really wanted to say king. I don't know why. Tears of the Black Tiger had a scene that was like that too. It was the trippy drug scene where they're like, ha 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 ha,
yeah,
like drinking each other's blood and stuff. This is the scene in this movie. It just gets so, it's just one thing to another. Where like the aunt all of a sudden after she walks into the freezer has like a personality change, and she's like dancing with the skeleton.
Yeah.
And then she's like it's just a whole bunch of weirdness. And then the cat, and all the while there's like this melody that's played. It's like a recurring theme. I really like the music in here. I just wanted to mention that. Shout outs to the music, because I think it really aided a lot. And we can talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But like there's this melody, and this cat just gets yeeted everywhere. I swear. The cat is either being thrown into the shot or thrown out of the shot. jumping on off and on the piano
Yeah.
in reverse, like on and off to the beat while it meows the
Yeah.
melody to the song. It's like meow, 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 meow,
Yeah.
meow, meow, meow. It's like, oh, yeah. Like, why?
Mhm.
What's happening? It also reminds me, do you know that scene in The Exorcist 3 where, what is it? Where the main detective guy has a dream that he's like in heaven and he's up in heaven
Mm.
and sees all the people
Yeah.
and it's all very disembodied and the angels are like Fabio and
Yeah.
stuff. And at the very end, like he realizes that his priest friend has died. Spoilers.
Mhm.
He realizes his priest friend has died, and then all of a sudden everything starts moving. Everything that was moving slow starts speeding up again, and starts speeding up at this frantic rate where it's almost kind of like terrifying.
Mhm.
That scene is what this movie is kind of like,
Yeah.
wherever it's like everything is just moving like at a hyper speed, like at hyper speed. But I think it's just because there's lots of effects going on. There's lots of stuff I think it's because there's so many things happening at the same time. It gives off the illusion that the film is moving fast,
Mhm.
technically, but it's not. It's so hard to describe this movie. And after after I sent comments to you, and I filmed some quick bits and put them on my Facebook,
Yeah.
people were people were messaging me.
Mhm.
And they were like, what is this movie? What is this? What are you watching? People were fascinated
Wow.
by the absurdness of this movie. And I was like, oh, I'm watching House, you. I'm watching House. And a few of them had seen it, and they were like, oh, yeah. And a few of them had not.
Mhm.
They were like, oh, that looks very interesting. I'm like, well, be aware that it is an art house film. Be aware of the fact that, like, films like this are cult films for a reason because they're divisive. Like, you're either gonna get it
Mhm.
and you're gonna love it and you're gonna think
Yeah.
it's so entertaining, or you're gonna think it's really obscure because you're trying to hold on to the logic of it. But
Yeah.
the thing is that there isn't really logic, and I don't even think the story has like a message.
Yeah.
I don't know, because like in the end, the girl. So in the end, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
spoiler alert. Gorgeous. All the friends die
Mhm.
in horrific ways. I was very disappointed with Kung Fu's seemingly off-screen death. It was very odd to me, and I thought very unceremonious because I was rooting for her the entire time.
Right.
Like Kung
Yeah.
Fu's the only one that gets stuff done in this movie. Like everybody else just like is like, I don't know what to do. Kung Fu's like, no, I'm gonna go outside. I'm just gonna like, he just like straight up just has epic fights with everyone. But Gorgeous at the end of this film, everybody has died, except for Gorgeous. Wait, how does Sweets die?
Sweets? I think Sweets gets pummeled by the mattresses.
She's the futon. Wait,
Yeah.
how does Fantasy die?
Fantasy.
Because
I think Fantasy is the last one.
yeah, but what happens to her?
The ant, like, that's the thing, is, like, at the end, the ant comes and, like, takes her, and, yeah, I don't know exactly, I don't think they show exactly what happens in Fantasy, it's just that the ant takes her, and, yeah, I don't know, maybe, like, absorbs her or something. Yeah, anyways, yeah.
It was very weird. It was like the aunt and the mom both in the body, like possessing the body of Gorgeous, and then something happens there. But Gorgeous in the end, obviously still possessed by everyone, meets her stepmom. For some reason, her stepmom has just decided to come to the countryside house.
Well,
to make amends.
yeah, she said that, before in the movie. She said that she was going to go to the aunt's house and surprise her and and talk to Gorgeous.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
That's
so they set that up earlier in the movie, but yeah, it is kind of weird.
Well, she comes.
Mm-hmm.
She does follow up on her word.
Yeah.
And then Gorgeous says, Gorgeous shows up in like this very traditional kimono and is acting very strange, like she's probably gonna devour the stepmom
Yeah.
too.
I I
Um,
I think I so from what I got from this is so the aunt was never alive. That actually was not the aunt. That is I so from doing the little research and everything, it's the message that I got is so the aunt, her fiance died in World War II you know from a nuclear bomb that the nuclear bomb killed him, and so uh, which caused her to go into this despair, and uh, basically from there turned into, I guess when she died, she turned into kind of a demon or evil spirit or whatever, like classic, Japanese, like The Ring or The Grudge or whatever,
yeah, yeah,
those always started as people who turned into an evil demon through anger or resentment or whatever, And so I feel like it's a similar situation with the aunt. When she died, a similar thing happened. Basically, with the patterns that she only devours young girls, uh, and the link to Hiroshima was, or Nagasaki, whichever one, I forget which bomb killed her fiance. But anyways, uh, the the link between the bomb and her devouring these girls is she devours girls who have not been impacted by nuclear war, basically, which is why she goes with like the younger girls, where like the nuclear bomb has brought this huge sorrow in her life, and now she's mad at all these other girls for being happy. She's miserable because of this
she's mad
nuclear
because she
bomb.
lost her own youth and her own chance at happiness.
Yeah, because of nuclear
Yeah.
bomb, and so she's basically taking it from these other girls. And so she used to be that's the thing. They said she used to be the piano teacher in this little village, but then the girls stopped coming, and so you kind of get the idea that it's because she ate all of them, or she whatever devoured them, absorbed them, whatever. And so, and now she was more than happy to invite 6 more girls over to her house because she hasn't eaten in a
Hmm.
while, But that's basically, and so when the stepmom or future stepmom comes, it's the same situation. Uh, they're similar, and that's why she gets. And so
But the
I
stepmom
think
is also older.
yeah,
She's not
stepmom is
really that young.
she's older, yeah, but is she old enough, to know the sorrows of nuclear war? I don't know.
I never would have really guessed that that's where, like, I knew that that it had something to do with maybe that, like, the moral of the story had to do with like vanity
hmm
or something like that, because Gorgeous eventually became basically obsessed with maintaining with her mother's beauty
hmm
or something like that. I don't know, maybe the aunt was jealous of the mother's beauty too. I
Maybe,
don't know.
but
It's not very
yeah,
clear.
but
I
I
initially guessed
think
it was because of the bomb.
yeah, I don't know, but that's what I heard is because of the bomb is that's kind of what set off this chain reaction that caused it, and so that's that's like kind of the theme where there's these girls who they just don't get it. This demon is mad at these girls because they just don't get it. They don't get how terrible this is. They're just living their lives. They don't have to move on because they just weren't there. And so that's so that's that might not be it. That's one interpretation that I read that
Like
it's
when boomers go extreme
right. Yeah.
or something. 'Cause, like, that's the whole argument with like people that rat on millennials all the time.
hmm
It's like, but you can't rat on them for stuff that they don't really know about.
hmm
Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not so really fair contextually. So
hmm
it's like it's not fair really for the aunt to not give the girls a chance to mature.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
the thing
And
about
they all
I mean,
felt
think
bad
about
for her
the
too. They all felt awful for her too. It's not like
yeah.
they expressed. It's not like they thought it was funny.
Yeah, no.
Like,
But I mean, if you think of any other, I think like The Ring or The Grudge, is that fair? You watched a videotape and now you're going to die? That doesn't sound fair. You know, these demons don't play fair. They don't care about what's fair. They just want to devour human souls.
it's
So
just something that happens to you,
yeah,
I
I guess.
guess.
So yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's just happens. that it's consistent with like the way that the stories form too. I feel like you could have made a like a nice limited TV series out of this movie.
Yeah.
You know, like each up a new girl dies every episode. Like you could very easily chunk this movie into like multiple episodes,
Yeah.
and I think that would be interesting. I just keep comparing it to Sailor Moon because Sailor Moon is like that. It's all of the girls with very distinct personalities, um, all having their own individual adventures, but then also having adventures together, and this very episodic, kind of
Yeah.
corny, cheesy.
Well, I like I really like the characters in this movie. Maybe a good TV show would be the same group of girls going to a different haunted house every episode and getting killed one by one. And then the next episode they go to a different house and they all get killed one by one. And
How do
just
they how do they reanimate? Oh my god, it's
it
like
just starts over
Evil
every
Dead,
episode. It's
but
like a new. It's a new thing, but the same girls, the same characters in every episode. But
yeah.
it's just you can get. But I don't know. That would be That would be an interesting
It's like
TV show,
how many food related ways can we kill off Mac?
right?
in one series.
Right. And so I think
There's
this
endless
is
opportunities.
yeah, and I think this is something that you kind of you relate to with Kung Fu, her off-screen death, and like fantasies. We don't know exactly what happened to her, or you know, and also Mac. You don't see Mac get killed. She just disappears, and then they find her severed head in the well. You know, like that's so.
Yeah.
I wish that we saw more stuff like the piano scene. You know, more
Yeah.
like actual confirmed deaths, but also just the outlandish
Right.
deaths, stuff like
Also,
that.
just
I
all the
wish we
body
saw
parts
more
are
of that.
dismembered.
I wish we saw what happened to Mac. Why did her head get cut off? What's
Where's the rest of her body?
yeah.
That's what I want to know.
So
And that's something that they do too. They do that with all of the. They do that with Melody as well.
mhm.
Um, where like the piano kind of like eats her and absorbs her, but you don't see her full being, or you don't really see the aftermath. You just
Mhm.
see her like dismembered limbs floating around the piano because
Yeah.
of the CGI. It is so interesting. This
Mhm.
movie, it's nonsensical and infuriating, but it's actually no, it's actually not infuriating. It's still entertaining. I don't know. It it's causing cognitive dissonance for me
Yeah.
because it's so wacky and zany,
Yeah.
but simultaneously wholesome and endearing. I've
Mhm.
never seen death portrayed so wholesomely.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
it's like a cartoon. You know what it is? It pulled a Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and it like because can you imagine this being an anime? Like think about it.
Yeah.
If this were a manga or this was an anime,
Mhm.
I would buy everything
Mhm.
that was happening on screen. If this were like in a written format,
Yeah.
I would totally just accept all the weird things that were happening because it would have been thought out and drawn out to be wacky and zany like that.
Mhm.
But because it's like they took a manga and said, let's make it live action,
Right.
including all of the weird all of the weird issues that happen when you try to translate things
Mhm.
to live action. All those things are also included in there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this movie exists somewhere as like an anime.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
I
that's
know
happened.
I know there's a manga. So that's the complicated production of this movie. So we have Obayashi. He wrote it, and he submitted it to Toho, and Toho greenlit it. But they did not want Obayashi to direct the movie because he's not an actual staff member of Toho. He doesn't work for Toho, and Toho didn't want to hire him. And they'll take his story, but they don't want to hire him to direct. And so the movie was greenlit, and Toho started promoting it. But and it went into production, but there was no director to direct it, and they couldn't get a director. None of the Toho directors wanted to touch it. They looked at the screenplay, and they're like, "If I make this movie, I'll never make another movie ever again. Like, this will ruin my career. I'm not gonna make this." And nobody wanted to touch it. And it's for years. Even so the soundtrack was written and recorded 2 years before the movie even went into production. And so that, yeah, so 2 years. And so Toho started promoting it. They made posters. They put it on business cards. So, the Toho employees, their business cards had House on it. They were promoting the movie actively, and they didn't even have any way to direct it. 2 years before they even started making it. And they made a manga version before the movie was made, and a novelization, and a radio play. They did a radio play, and the radio play was super popular. And finally, that was the thing that pushed them. We have to get this movie made. The radio play is super popular. People want it. There's huge demand for this movie. So the only one who will direct it is Obayashi, who wrote it. I said so finally they caved in. They're okay, you can make this movie for us. So yeah, and it actually did pretty well in the box office. At the time, for such a strange movie, but it was, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that makes a lot of sense in a way, because it's yeah, if that was the case, if it in any way was influenced by the manga, they did a good job adapting it. Because,
right.
I mean, it may not make logical sense, but they definitely found a way to take exactly what was probably in that manga and put it right on screen,
right?
Including all of the weird things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
But is it a faithful adaptation?
I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, because they started with a screenplay and then a manga and novelization. I wonder if I can get the manga in English. I wonder if they released that in English or not. If I can get a copy of that and the novel. I'd want to read the novel too, see what that's all about.
Right. Let's look it up.
Yeah.
Share with me what you find. I'll share.
Because
with you what I find.
that would be interesting.
I'm fascinated to see how this got translated.
Yeah. So, House. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on with House. I think
I mean, we could honestly be stuck here talking for another 2 hours about, because this is a movie where so much happens per frame rate.
Yeah.
Per frame.
Right,
You
and
could stop the movie every 30 seconds watching this live.
Yeah.
To talk about it.
That's what I was talking about with this director, with the unique way that he views film is he views film frame by frame, and so he makes every single frame count, and because he doesn't go with the full story or scene by scene. It's literally frame by frame. That's how he thinks about film, and I think this movie really shows that.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, I guess Kevin, if you could rate this film.
Yeah. So,
which kind of seems, I feel like we need to edit our rating criteria.
Right.
Because when we're watching art house films, it's its own, these films are within their own realm.
Yeah.
Of existence.
Whenever I do a rating, I always just do it on how much did I enjoy it, and sometimes it's all about story, and sometimes, but with a movie like this is one of those ones where I like the strangeness. I like strange movies. If the movie is not strange, it better have a good story, right? But if it's kind of weird and strange, then like it doesn't need a story. And this is one of those movies. I don't know. I like strange movies. I like experimental stuff that doesn't. It's not like assaulting. Sometimes you get like I feel like the filmmaker is just like punching you in the face the whole time. And this one, I don't feel like he was doing that at all. Like it's very experimental, but it's not aggressive.
Like, there's a touch of humor in this one.
Yeah.
I realize that's a theme with you for the movies you've been picking.
Yeah.
Is that you?
I
You
do
really
I
like the
do
ones
like
that have, like, a
I do like a sense of humor. I do like a comedy. So yeah. Anyways, I enjoy this movie. I enjoy this movie every time I watch it. I've seen it about 4 or 5 times now, and yeah, every time it's great. I think I give it 8 out of 10. Yeah, I yeah, I really like it, and it's yeah. I don't know. It's just it does little weird things. I keep thinking about that flashback scene on the train or the exposition scene on the train, and just how good it was, and just unique and effective and entertaining. You know.
I like that we finally got a director here who decided to use a montage scene like effectively.
Yeah.
If you know anything about me and how much I complained about all of the exposition in Metropolis,
Right.
then like
Yeah.
you'll know that I appreciate some good exposition where it's not exposition.
Yeah. Right.
So
Oh yeah. So Michaela, what was your rating? How would you
okay.
rate House?
In the vein of art house cinema, this one gets a 10 out of 10 for me
Mm-hmm.
for art house cinema.
Yeah.
For the normal average viewer that's not expecting it, it's divisive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Same as I gave The Room,
Mm-hmm.
purely because there are story elements in there that could have been done better. But also, that's not the point of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sure what the point of the movie
Right.
is. It's just its own experience, which is why I'm like, I think we need to like figure out another rating system for these.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta have like a 2 different meters because
Because that's what I was saying. When I rate films, I always rate it according to Kevin. I don't care what other people think. This is what Kevin thinks. That's why I gave Knives Out a 1 out of 10. Because Kevin doesn't like it. I don't care what other people. I'm not thinking of other people when I rate this movie. So I'm like, on the Kevin scale, this movie, what did I say, 8 out of 10? I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think on the normal person scale, this is like a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Right.
But for me though, considering I found it,
Yeah. What's the Michaela score?
The Michaela score is more like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed The Room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, The Room is hilarious, but also infuriating
Yeah.
to a point where then it is funny. This film is not really infuriating, it's just so unexpected
Mm-hmm.
that you laugh regardless.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. It's like everything funny about The Room, but without the disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Michaela, so next week is your turn to pick the movie. So what is your Cine-Pick for me?
Yes. The Cine-Pick for you for next week, keeping in the art house vein, is going to be The Neon Demon.
Okay.
I believe it was released sometime around 2014. Could be 2015. It stars Elle Fanning. I'm not going to give you anything other than that.
Okay.
Yes, the
Sounds
name
good.
is very fitting,
Okay.
I think.
Interesting. Alright, well, I've never heard of this movie before, so...
Wait, really?
Yeah, really, I've never heard of it. So, this will be a surprise. Since I surprised you with this week's Cinepick, you can surprise me for next week. So, there we go. So, The Neon Demon. I'm excited.
Neon Demon. I believe it's
Oh.
on Prime. If you have Prime, I think
Mhm.
you'll be able. I think it's free with Prime.
Okay, yeah, I'll look around. Alright, sounds good, Michaela. Thanks for watching House. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I think you did since you gave it
I did.
such a high
9 out
score.
of 10.
Yeah. Alright, and thanks everybody for watching our discussion on House. And if you have any suggestions for future Cine-Picks, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so that way you don't miss our discussion on the Neon Demon. Ring the notifications so you get updates for future videos and whatever else. And we'll see you next week.
See
Goodbye.
you next week.